And we are live. Welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. I am Josh. I'm joined by Eddie, and this week, Mr. Wayne Sutton. I think that's a good enough intro, right, Eddie? I think we did a good enough job.
Yeah.
So cool. Wayne, you got approval? It's all good?
All good. All good.
Right. Well, listen, instead of even trying to summarize what you do, man, how about for everyone that's going to be listening, that's live right now and joining in, give them a little quick summary of who you are, and then we'll kind of jump in from there.
Yes. So overall, I'm just a big geek and a nerd, and thanks for you two for having me on the podcast. But Wayne Sutton, the co-founder of Tech Inclusion, we focus on sustainable and inclusive innovation. Also co-founder of BUILDUP, was a 2-week fellows program for underrepresented entrepreneurs. I am a big advocate for diversity, inclusion, in tech. Serial entrepreneur, launched a couple of startups, launched a couple of MVPs that took off, and just big advocate for everyone having a fair stake in tech.
That's awesome. Well, listen, let's start off from your beginnings, because I feel like if we're gonna get the full story of you and how you became who you are and everything you're about now, I feel like we should start way back when. So you're from originally North Carolina too, correct? So
yes.
So the completely opposite world of Silicon Valley, similar to how Eddie and I was. So talk about kind of your childhood, what kind of got you into becoming an entrepreneur first off, and how you got into your first ventures leading up to pretty much kind of your way leading to.
Yeah. So childhood, grew up, of course, I'm showing my age here, but with the Atari, Commodore, was a big geek, big nerd, but actually started off with graphic design and just art. And I used to actually draw a lot in paint. And I used to drawing people clothes and things of that nature. It was like a side business. Everybody had this side business where, I sold lemonade and made money. I think Gary Vee has his story. You sell lemonade, you sell people flowers. And everybody had their hustle, but my hustle were actually design and art. And so I actually used to draw people clothes, their jeans, and that was my hustle in high school.
Were you charging for that? So in high school, are you I'll draw on your jeans, give me $10 type mindset?
But it was a little more than that. Jeans, I think it was $50 something maybe 20. It was we talking about the 90s, 80s, so maybe $20, $40, for you do some art on one of your legs, on your jeans. So it was cool.
What were you drawing? I'm out of curiosity. What was your favorite?
Oh man, you have to remember back then it was the Mario character with the foxtail. You remember from Super
Mario? Of course, I remember that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I used to draw people clothes and put the Mario. Then some people wanted the big graffiti letters with their name or initials, things of that nature. So that's what I used to draw. So
what was the venture called?
Oh, that was just Wayne. That was just Wayne Hustle. that was trying to get
Wayne
some
Hustle.
Sneakers.
I like that.
Sneakers for the for the school year. So that was in the 80s and in the 90s. But I also worked on a farm a lot in growing up in North Carolina. I did a lot of hard labor, cropping tobacco, picking cucumbers, you name it. I grew up that was a summer job that we did. To get money to go school shopping, right?
There's a lot of big tobacco crops in North Carolina, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a huge farming area. So I did that as a summer job, but in high school. And I remember one day working, getting up at 5 a.m, going in the field, and it's been 100 degrees later, as the day progressed. I'm when I get older, I'm going to have my own design firm. I'm going to be the AC. I'm going to be, the CEO. And I always had that drive to kind of have my own firm since then as an entrepreneur. And that's kind of that drive I've gotten away from over the years, but I've known that I'm happiest in my life when I'm doing my entrepreneurship endeavors.
So how long did you work that regular labor kind of position until you finally got yourself off the ground as an entrepreneur?
So let's fast track. So that was all high school. That's all 18 years old or younger. And then I got a job at a newspaper. Then I worked at another newspaper, and then a television station. And we talk about 2009 now. So it's 90, go from 93 to 2009. And I'm in tech. I'm on Twitter. I was one of the first 1,000 users of Twitter.
Wow.
When it launched in 2006. I was working at an interactive agency between those years. So I've been in IT now. I had my own web hosting firm at one point. And then in 2009, a colleague of mine reached out to me because I was actually speaking at South by Southwest when Foursquare launched. So I was sitting beside Naveen after they had that big announcement.
That's
and
awesome.
Then I went back to North Carolina when my friends was like, we can build this. We can build our own Foursquare for the Raleigh-Durham area and have people check into businesses and build relationships. And this is 2009, before like social media and Twitter and Facebook was a thing, a real thing. And businesses were still trying to learn the value of using Twitter. They was like, why should it be on Facebook? And we come talking about, hey, check into a location and connect with your customers in real time. And so that's what we ended up doing in 2009, is creating an app called Tryout, location-based platform, iOS app, a social network. And that was kind of really the beginning of my tech entrepreneurship endeavors.
So up until that point, graphic design had carried you to that stage.
I actually made a pivot, it wasn't even a pivot back then, but just made a career transition from I graduated high school, went to 1 year of college for computer graphic design, and then job at a newspaper for graphic design. Then went to another newspaper in Raleigh, Durham, left that, and then got a job at an interactive agency, and then spent 8 years in IT. And so went from graphic design to IT, and actually, did everything from setting up Cisco routers, web servers. We had a web hosting firm. We provided internet service. So it was like 8 years in the beginning of kind of like commercial internet days, all internet, the first bubble.
Wow. Yeah. So did you keep that side hustle though, of the graphics you were talking about before? Like, did you continue doing that?
Not really. There was different times. Like I did different projects. I actually published because graphic design was a good skill set, and I still use it today. I do front end development some, and so your skills just evolve over years. But at that time, like graphic design was part like designing ads and desktop publishing,
Right.
And so
you went from like the creative side to the hardware side, like just completely pivoted. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, would you say the design side, though, was an asset for you? Because I feel like a lot of developers lack that design characteristic. Vice versa, a lot of designers lack the developer characteristics, the limitations. But so would you say those like years of having a design background was an asset for you? Or was it just something that just complemented and you never really looked at it as more of an asset than that?
Well, I totally look at it as an asset, especially in today's time where we've seen so many different mobile apps and products launch. And you are judged based on first impression, no matter what it is. And so we're talking about the user experience, we're talking about the design, the style, how it looks, how it makes you feel emotionally. And so with having a design background, you think about patterns, you think about colors, you think about usability, you think about user experience, and all that matters in terms of for even I think entrepreneurship and for product managers and for developers is really looking at design and how it make people feel and make decisions on how intuitive your product is in terms of usability. And I would say, it hasn't been to like the last 4 years, we start to see more of the emphasis in terms of design-focused teams and design-focused products that really was pushing the needle forward in terms of making a product intuitive and can see how a design directly affects growth of a product.
So you bring up a good point. I mean, so going back to your tech background of everything you're doing, was your mindset then going to be, I'm going to help our customers by building the most attractive thing possible while solving their issues so people will tell the word out there? Like when you brought your initial design experience, what was, I guess let me backtrack and ask the question what you were bringing to your company originally with your founding team, your first ever entrepreneurial? Were you like looking at from, I'm going to do everything from the brand design to our customers, what they're doing? Or did you almost take a back seat? Like what was your like job title, your position, and obviously outside wearing many hats early on in the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey in the tech side?
Yeah. So early on, it was about creating the right UI because we started with the mobile app. So early on, my co-founder and I, Lawrence, in North Carolina, it was about creating the right user experience that was familiar with current interfaces. Therefore, it didn't make people think. And so we spent a lot of time looking at the first generation Facebook app, right? Because we talking about 2009. This is beginning of like, I think,
in my head, man. I see it. I see the original Facebook in my head.
It's an iPhone 1 or iPhone 2 or 3 around that time frame, and the internet wasn't that fast, and it's still the Facebook app.
Was your area kind of like going, like I would say that our area in South Jersey was kind of behind the curve. Would you say that where you guys were in North Carolina was kind of up on things, or was it like you were finding that people weren't really understanding the need and the value?
Yeah. I would say in North Carolina, we was in Raleigh, Durham. You know what? We was in Raleigh because the people like I'm from the area, and Durham people don't like when you bundle up Raleigh, Durham. So we was in Raleigh.
We won't tell them. Don't worry, you're good. Your secret's safe with us.
Yeah. So I was in downtown Raleigh. It was a nice tech hub of iOS developers, of other entrepreneurs, designers. NC State is in that area, and it's a huge design school. And so we was very up to date with the kind of current trends at that time in terms of mobile app design, just building mobile apps and just push the needle in terms of social networks. There's a huge actually Facebook, UNC, NC State kind of contingent there. So yeah.
So a lot of our listeners that listen to this podcast are inspiring entrepreneurs, or they're in their infant stages of becoming an entrepreneur. So one of my questions for you that I think you could relate to this audience the most at this stage in your life, especially as a service, similar to what we do now at Chop Dog, is how did you guys go about acquiring your initial customers and growing, scaling your company? And what were some of the struggles you faced, and how did you overcome that? Especially, again, you're in North Carolina, you're in Raleigh, right? This is not like you're already in San Francisco, in the Valley, or New York City, or somewhere where people just get it. Because I remember back in 2009, we were selling websites, like making websites at that point. And the people in 2009, most small businesses thought it was an accessory, not a necessity, right? And it's mind-boggling me even then at 2009, like how people approach that. And you're pitching mobile apps when iOS is pretty much new. Android's a piece of crap. I think Palm OS was a thing at that point. Like, so how did you overcome that, and how did you find a need, especially in that area?
Yeah. So it was very, very hard. Like, but we did it strategically a couple ways. One, we grew our team. We brought in another iOS developer. We brought in a sales guy who knew the community well. And so between the sales guy and I was doing design, I was doing business development, I was doing some of the front end development. So you name it. We all everybody did everything. But we actually started just going to local businesses and actually talk about the use of mobile apps to actually learn more about their customers, actually use it to generate business, and actually create different sales and marketing promotions. Because with our application, you could actually know that a customer went to this location before, they checked into your location, and therefore what could partnership you could work out with the previous location, and also that you understand about their behavior patterns and shopping patterns. And this is all 2009. And then you actually could communicate with a person in real time through the back end of the mobile app. And it was a hard sell because individuals at that time still was saying Twitter was a fad. Why did they need to get on Facebook? It was for college students. No real business would happen. You were right about the websites. People were saying, do I really need a website? Because if people were like, I got a Yelp profile. That's all they needed at that time, right? And it was a hard sell. But being that I was early adopter to Twitter, had started doing events in the community, that actually helped. And a great friend and mentor of mine always told me about, he's saying that the winning solution for kind of community and marketing is online and offline engagements. And so we actually would do meetups and tweet ups and then conferences and then Ignite events in the community. And we would co-brand them with our product. So to actually help bring awareness to everything we were doing. And that awareness and relationship building, so people will give us opportunity.
Interesting. So were you focused at this time, primarily iOS? Were you also doing Android? Back then in 2009, what was the demand? What were people focused on when you're working with them?
It was all iOS. And then the iOS app got approved, I think, December the 20th, on Christmas Day of 2008, I believe.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. 2008 or 2009, the app was approved that day. Then 3 months later, we launched a web facing product, the social network because we knew that, okay, iOS mobile demand still was very new for a lot of businesses. And so let's build this web platform. And also at the time, as you stated earlier, a lot of businesses didn't have websites. And so when we launched our web platform that was connected directly to the iOS app, it actually allowed businesses to use their profile as their website on our social network. And so so we had a launch party at the Research Triangle Park headquarters for the social network, and that was part of our strategy as well.
Interesting. So how long did you run this for until you said, all right, I'm done East Coast, let's go Silicon Valley? And you're like, you're out.
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly like that, but it kind of was like that. And so 2009 to 2011, we worked on the platform. We bootstrapped it. We started to get some interest from East Coast investors. We got some nice partnerships in the local community with NC State University. And we were talking about white labeling and them acquiring our product and technology to use as an onboarding platform for their freshman students to learn about the campus. And then the data came out from CB Insights in 2011 that 1% of tech startups are founded by a African American and by a minority. And by that time, I'm like, I've been in tech my whole life, been in IT, knowing that's not diverse. And then going from now having my own startup 2009 and being an entrepreneur, that I've been speaking at South by and traveling more across the country, going to Blog World in New York, these conferences, and not seeing a lot of diversity there. And then when the data come out, I kind of had enough. And I knew Angela Bitten. She was in Charlotte. I was in Raleigh. She had her blog, Black Web 2.0, where she was talking about launching a product. And I was like, how about we go to Silicon Valley for the summer? We rent a house and do a startup house. And then that led to, why don't we create an incubator and accelerator? We actually talked to Jason Calacanis and Dave McCurr in 2011 in March at South by. It was like, hey, we think about coming to Silicon Valley, doing this incubator, doing this accelerator. We want to connect with you all. We'll the partner and any feedback. And Jason actually told us the website to go where we could rent a house for like 4 months in Mountain View. And that's what we did. So in June of 2011, we literally had an idea around February of 2011. And then June of 2011, we had an incubator, an accelerator in Silicon Valley. And that kind of started the next wave of my career.
And so let's jump into this for a second. So number one, so one of the interesting things I noticed here is that you've been in North Carolina this entire point, right? For most of your life?
Yes.
So I guess, Eddie, this is probably something you and I had something. We just interviewed Jeff Slabosky. So a little background, Jeff Slabosky, he runs Router Ventures, former Silicon Prairie News. So he actually decided to stay in the Midwest his whole life, like stay in the area. And you're very, I can't talk today, similar to us, where Eddie and I, we grew up in the East Coast, right? We all this parallel is a lot of the big players and shakers now in the Valley are not from there. How 10 years ago, they all were from Mountain View, Palo Alto, right? So I guess going into this did you have any reservations saying, I'm going to leave this area, that I'm not, I'm going to leave North Carolina, leave it behind? Or when you went there temporarily, your mind says, this is only a few months, I'll be back. This is just for fun, see what we can do. So kind of what was your state of mind leaving where you've been all your life to somewhere unfamiliar, even though I'm sure you've probably been there a couple of times.
Yeah, and what were people there? What was the main thing you were hoping to get out of it other than the networking opportunities?
Yeah, so when we did a documentary, and this is relevant, is that we got a lot of national press, a lot of coverage. Like we got CNN heard about what we were doing and did a documentary about us that came out in 2011. We was in Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So we got a lot of national press. And because at that time, you'd never before on TV really seen African Americans, minorities talking about working on tech startups. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't something we did. You didn't talk about it. Now, At the same time, there's a whole other contingent of people who have been out here in Silicon Valley, had, like the Ken Colemans, the Ray Clarks, the Shelleys, from Metric System, Metric Stream. So you have a lot of people out here who have been out here for years, but it just wasn't a big issue at the time, a big conversation. And so when we came, we got the national press, and then actually we didn't know what to expect. We knew we were coming. We had expectations of helping the companies raise capital, helping the companies build relationships and create sustainable businesses, but also creating good business for the world that were fundable. So that was our goals. That was our objective, number one. It wasn't necessarily talking about just race and lack of diversity. It was talking about just show that there's be some great companies just happen to be founded by underrepresented individuals. And then when I came, it blew my mind. I love the energy that was here. And we visit San Francisco. We had a house in Mountain View. I love the energy in Mountain View. I love the focus that people had that around their product, around using technology. I love how fast everybody moved, everybody executed. I love that there was resources available that if you literally have, I'm going to work on driverless cars this weekend, or drones delivering tacos, or all right, we're going to come up with a cure for cancer, or we're going to build a product for, to stop homeless. You did it that weekend, you hacked on it, or everybody's like, cool, let me know how I can help, or let's make it happen today, or let's start building it. I love that mindset, and that type of mindset and culture in terms of the density, in terms of the amount of energy, doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And while there's a tech hub, a great entrepreneurship ecosystem in Raleigh and in Durham and Chapel Hill, it's just not as large as it was here in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and not as supportive. And that's for almost every tech ecosystem in the country, in the world. There's the amount of people, the amount of risk takers, the amount of people who get risk, who get how the system works out here is just greater than anywhere else. And I was attracted to that, and I was like, you know what? This is where I wish I would have moved like 10 years earlier, but I'm gonna come now and do what I can.
And I mean, you still have ties to Raleigh and that East Coast tech scene. I'm sure that you're still supporting, right? I mean, you work, or you are familiar with Jewel Burks, I assume, right?
Yes. Jewel from Park Pit. Yeah. I met Jewel actually in 2011. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Josh and I saw her speak in Philly. She did a demo of the product like 2-3 years ago, I guess. And I was really interested in it. And I saw that they were just in the White House and whatnot. Like that was really cool. And they're still repping Georgia, or Atlanta, which is really cool. So the East Coast is not. I feel like over the next couple of years, it'll start to build up a little bit more. No pun intended. To be more. Not as strong as the West, obviously, but I think people are starting to realize you don't need Valley money and Valley ties, but it's definitely.
Well, I've noticed this being in Philly now, for example, just Philadelphia's tech scene 3-4 years ago compared to now, it's 18 times the size, and they have a whole tech week now. Cities are starting to put tax benefits, bringing in startups, organizations, keeping them in here. Like Philly, for example, has now produced DuckDuckGo, Sierra Interactive. Some of these huge startups are now staying in this area. And what I think is happening, and maybe Wayne, this might be just from your now living there perspective, is a lot of individuals are actually leaving the Valley to cities like Philly or Austin or Boston or New York because cost of living, infrastructures, where now these other cities are trying to max the benefits that the Valley does. Even though the support network isn't there, you have like first round capital a couple streets from here who are now trying to invest locally in these areas because it's not as saturated, and ability to scale a lot quicker and then target the schools where the kids are still in school to keep them in the area so they stay here longer. I'm not trying to put down the Valley by any means, because I think, as you said, it's truly a magical place. Like, there's no doubt about it. When you're there, it's like a drug. You get so addicted to it, and just the people and the community. But at the same time, I think you're starting to see, and kind of, Eddie, what you're going at, I think you're starting to see it flood. Like, it can't hold that much people, that much infrastructure. And other cities are trying to take advantage of that, and they're trying to foster their tech communities. And then you have, for example, DC right now is catering towards more nonprofit in startups now from 1776. And you have in Boston, you have Mass Challenge, a lot more like school-related, educational-related companies. In New York's more financial-based startups. So I also think you start seeing cities now leveraging what they're really good at, like Vegas with Zappos, with the entertainment, customer service area, where you start seeing cities try to take advantage of what they are good at that the Valley isn't, based off of their hundreds of years of backing, and trying to make that their hub for a niche in the startup scene.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even though, despite what I just said about the whole, it's the density of people here, everything is changing. And there's a sense of, I have a hypothesis around why the beginning of the year, why we start seeing all these really high net worth venture capitalists start talking about income inequality. It was like, why is that happening? But there's a sense that I get that with the American economy as a whole and how that is going to affect the tech economy and marketplace, and with what we're seeing in terms of new opportunities to raise capital for entrepreneurs. Tie that along with how everybody's been saying the cost to launch the startup is way less than what it used to be years ago. We're actually going to see more successful products that come out of that's not from Silicon Valley, like in Philadelphia, New Jersey, DC, Baltimore, Atlanta, you name it, and are going to be super successful, make a lot of money, and not be venture backed.
Also, a lot of bootstrap products, but with that comes a lot of bullshit too. I mean, the more successful products usually means the more, you know, entrepreneurs and people just trying to be in the industry and the scene because they think it's cool and they want to do it. And I mean, you've been in the game for a little while now. How much of that have you seen being in Silicon Valley? I mean, that stuff happens a lot. You see a lot of people who look like they want to be involved but don't exactly know where they fit in, and they're just trying to figure that out. Yeah,
that's going to happen, and that already has been happening since the movie Social Network came out.
That's true.
I kind of actually get a sense that, and I know that Chris Sacca tweeted this. He's like, he hoped the market crashed, so you got to want to be entrepreneurs out of here, right? So I feel like we actually have peaked on that, right? And especially maybe, I'm not sure in other markets, but I feel like in San Francisco or the Bay Area, because it does cost a lot to live here. It is very competitive. You have to want to be here, and people have choices of options. And that is also part of what a lot of companies don't get when we talk about in the whole diversity and tech conversation, is that everybody doesn't want to come work for Google or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, or it's the same company, or you name it. Everybody doesn't want to go to LA to work for Snapchat. Everybody doesn't want to go, to any tech company just because of the brand. Some people will and do, but everybody has a choice, right? Like, I choose to come out here in San Francisco and to kind of put my stake in the ground, and I love it. I feel like one of the best decisions I made. It's not for everybody. But I do feel like we're reaching a kind of all right, people who want to do this is going to be here. And it's okay if you do create a great sustainable business, or at least try in a different market. But I do believe we're going to see a lot of good products that are going to be not venture funded. That's going to be, it could be angel backed. It could be backed by, could still be an incubator and accelerator for the local community. And they have a great business model, and it's actually creating jobs for the community. It's in tech, and also how we position companies saying it's in tech is going to be different, because tech is everywhere, right? And so it's like MasterCard and Visa now say they are tech companies, right? You know, they don't say we are fintech, or then if we put them in the fintech vertical. But they're actually talking about, because how they use technology for transactions, and right. So every business is going to be using some sort of technology, creating good sustainable businesses, good for the local community, creating jobs, and that's going to be an okay thing. Now, what that's going to shift though is the hedge funds, the venture capitalists, the large big funds, and make that more competitive for the other entrepreneurs who's trying to really create that big unicorn type business that is still only 10 to 15 a year. I think we actually going to see few of those.
I think you're already starting to see it. I mean, wasn't last month the first month where no tech companies IPO'd in what was like 3-4 years, right? Was it? I don't know. Don't quote me on the exact stat, but like none whatsoever IPO'd, correct?
Yeah, I think I saw one. There might be one, but
I know Jessica Alba's startup, Honesty, just announced they're going to IPO, right? Yeah, that was like the first big one.
Yeah, but I think it might be early. It might have been February that I saw one that said it was going public. But you're right, but not many. Not many beginning of the quarter.
It's definitely. I mean, remember back on like Facebook and then Twitter, how many were going, and all the way up to GoPro, basically, of just these huge companies you're hearing. I mean, you looked at Square. Square was rumored for how long to IPO, and now there's not even a peep from it anymore, right? And then people are like clamoring Uber to IPO, but Travis, CEO, is like, I'm not IPOing anytime soon, stands. So I also think maybe there's a negative looking at IPO for a lot of entrepreneurs where they don't want to appeal necessarily to those type of investors versus the ones they intimately can talk to and plan long term. Because I think you're starting to see, I think Twitter might actually be negative because of their IPO. Because even though I think their product's better than ever it is before, a lot of the moves they've done have been for short-term results, not long-term. And I think that's put them in a significantly weaker position than if maybe they stayed private. Yeah, I mean, that all happened. Think about the turmoil, the leadership changes. But, going back into kind of your background and purpose now let's get into a little bit about tech inclusion and a little bit about Build Up and how you started those and then what you're trying to do with them. And, kind of go into some details about both of those.
Yeah. So I'll start with Build Up. So 2014, I realized that, okay, my passion is still working with supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs. And so I looked at what can I do to create a program that really still helps support those, especially in the early stage, because we start seeing how the seed rounds went from being at $500,000, $250,000 to now $1 million. And then we looked at the opportunity and realized that still underrepresented entrepreneurs, women, Latino, African-American, LGBT, vets, look at age, that demographic still had the hardest time raising $50K, their friends and family. Still has the hardest time getting in the doors in terms of networks that could help them be successful, incubators, accelerators, you name it. And so that's what we feel like the biggest need was, and still is, to focus on that demographic, to provide them educational opportunities, create network opportunities for them to connect with investors. So we launched a 2-week fellows program that was like a very condensed incubator and accelerator. And that way you had office hours, we put them through a curriculum, talking about leadership, talking about pitching, product market fit, and still had a demo day, which we did at Twitter headquarters. And that was launched with 2 co-founders, Christian Anderson and Christina Amari, with backgrounds in investment banking and M&A. And then 2015, looking at the whole ecosystem, after a year later, everyone released their diversity inclusion numbers from the major tech companies. Everybody's still talking about the problem, right? It's like, oh, these numbers are low, or can't find people. And what we realized is that, and that's with Melinda Epler, who's also my girlfriend, we've also business partners with Tech Inclusion and Change Catalyst, is that we're focused, we realized, how can we change the conversation to talk more about solutions in the entire tech industry? How can we really bring people together to talk about, what best practices? And because with the tech companies, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Apples, everybody operates in their own little hub, their own little network, right? And they actually don't share what's working in terms of hiring or reaching different networks, because it's all competitive. But when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and tech, that's not an area where we need to be apart. It's an area where we all need to work together in terms of solutions and really create successful outcomes. And so we created Tech Inclusion Conference in September. It was originally going to be June. We pushed it back to September of 2015. We sold out. We had 440 attendees. We launched a career fair. We had 27 companies for the career fair. We had over 600 candidates come through for the career fair. That sold out. And it's been nothing but 100% positive feedback. And the metrics of success that we received from the conference, Tech Inclusion, was the how we actually change people's perceptives and lives and help them make better decisions around diversity, inclusion, and tech, and hire some people. And then with Build Up through the Fellows Program, we had 6 startups, and out of that, 3 of those have went on to other incubators and accelerators. So it was focused on the early stage, so it worked as well. And so that's the work I'm passionate about and really care about, moving everything from let's talk about the problem to let's focus on solutions and show people what can be done.
So taking to the solution factor of it, because I love what you're doing, and I've known you for a few years now, and I think it's amazing. I see the value in most companies trying to take a step in the direction. I saw diversity reports as a thing that a year ago I don't think anyone was really doing. Now companies are trying to publicize what they're trying to do, their hiring practices. Obviously, there's a long, long way to go. So my question for you is, from your perspective, what is the solution for the long term? Like, how does this something that's not even a conversation anymore because everyone's just treated fairly? And no, that's the way I look at it. It's like if you even have to have the conversation, there's something wrong in essence because everyone's people, right? It's not you're female, male, African American, white, Caucasian, Latino, whatever. How do we get to that point as maybe not so much even in the tech scene entrepreneur scene, but just the society as a whole, where it's just it's just people, where it's just people doing business.
Yeah. That, my friend, if we had the answers, we should be getting like multiple Nobel Peace Prizes.
I guess that is a loaded question. I realize that.
No. But at the same time, it is a simple answer because it really comes down to you have to care. You have to care. You have to respect people. You have to value people. And it's sad that we have to have this conversation still in 2016, right? When you look at our conversation around American politics right now, right? It's not good, right? Look at even tweets that's being said from some of our well-known venture capitalists that just was happening last night.
Yeah, I saw that.
Respecting people from other nationalities. It's like really we all come from different backgrounds. I grew up in the South of North Carolina. You guys, New Jersey, Philadelphia area. It doesn't matter that you could be white, you could be Indian, you could be Jewish, I could be African American, I could be Latino. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I could be female or transgender. It doesn't matter, right? We're all humans. And there's been some posts that have been going around. I think Neil Joshua wrote a post about humanization of tech or the industry. But we have to get back to where we respect people in terms of their different views on race, religion, culture. We respect people beyond their resume, their pedigree. We respect people beyond what school they went to. Respect people beyond how much money they raised or they didn't raise. And value, respect, intelligence. There's a post I want to write, but it's about there's a certain perception around value and intelligence based on who you are and your background. Now, yes, there's some people there's a lot of people smarter than I am and went to some amazing schools and raised tons of money who didn't grow up in the South, who don't have the accent that I have. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't value me less as a human being because I'm different. And that is deeply rooted into the history of America. Is why we have a Black History Month today, right? Because of civil rights and what happened in the history of America. Is why you look at we have a Columbus Day because of what happened in those time frames, and is why this conversation is continuing to happen for years. Because
do you feel like the tension that there's obviously with the Black Lives Movement in the last year or so, there's been a lot of tension across the nation and a lot of things. Do you feel that tension in the tech scene as well? I mean, it was specifically in the workplace or in the networking events or anything like that at all?
I feel the tension. My answer to that is I feel the tension because I'm Black and I'm aware in terms of what's happening to us as a culture, society, when things happen in St. Louis, when it happens in Oakland, when it happens in New York, it touches me emotionally. Most of my tech world is not African American, right? Like there's events I go to when it's primarily African American and other things. I have people in my network. We talk about it, but on a day-to-day basis, no.
Right. So that's kind of what I'm wondering is do those discussions happen within the tech scene? I mean, are those discussions occurring at all?
Yeah. In terms of are the discussions happening in tech scene? Yes. They're happening a lot. They happen a lot, but you have to be plugged in to know where those are happening and want to be in those conversations. If not, because so much about the message around being a great entrepreneur in tech is what we all know is to focus.
Now,
right? And with that, I'm not judging right or wrong, but the message is focus. So no matter what happens, it's okay, somebody, there's a police situation happen. It happened right here in San Francisco. I see it. I'm like, wow. And now when I walk past police officers, my guard is up. It's always been up most of the time, but the guard is even up more because I'm like, I know that this behavior happens right here in my backyard. And I don't want that to happen to me, but also I have now this tension, right? I can choose to focus on that, or you focus on like, how can I focus on my product, my company, providing good service, growth, acquisitions, fundraising, focus. So you have to focus if you're gonna be a good entrepreneur, but you still have to choose what you're gonna participate in and how things can affect you emotionally and what actions you're gonna take, because you can choose to get involved in those actions and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But you also have a responsibility once you take venture capital money or you're a CEO, a team executive, to focus on that area too.
You know, you bring up it's frustrating just for me to hear that this still happens, right? And that how, and I've seen this firsthand too myself. You know, Chris Coleman, who again he's our co-host, it's not on this episode, mentioned how much he struggled just getting in front of VCs for the longest time. And then I listened to the startup podcast. This second season is about 3 women that founded, and how literally they're pitching at Y Combinator, I think it was, and they're being hit at their demo day on saying, you know, basically, if you sleep with me, I'll give you money type things. Like, how is that happening in 2015, 2016? And one of the things, I guess this is maybe more or less my hypothesis, but something that I also think about a lot is we get a lot of applications every day. Thanks to Twitter, our amazing following. Seriously, we have such amazing people. You know, I probably forward Eddie like 10 applications a week for UI designers alone. We get so few diversity. It's insanity. And not just that, I had a tweet, maybe it was 6 months ago. It was very distinct to me about, why don't you have any women on your team? And I remember the answer was, I can't even think of the last time one's actually filled an application to work with us. And then I talked to a lot of women that I am friends with in the tech scene and people diverse in that nature. And they think there's not many of them because they don't grow up in a supportive environment that supports them to go to tech and entrepreneurship. So I almost feel like there's almost 2 problems causing this, which is the way people currently think, and then the lack of support networks to people at an earlier age to tell them, encourage them to go that way. And that's one of the reasons why I really look up to you, because I think you are also an outlet to a lot of African Americans, a lot of minority groups too. Like, you are someone that's made it, someone that knows what the hell they're doing, is speaking up on their behalf and showing that, especially, you know, you're from North Carolina. Again, you're not someone from the Valley, not someone that grew up downtown of Apple's headquarters, right? You literally worked your fucking ass off, pardon my French, but it's true, to get to where you are and what you're trying to do. And I think that's one of the things that I'm very frustrated with from my stance is, how do you educate more people and just basically say, you can do it. If you love tech, you love entrepreneurship, you love mobile, you have those entrepreneurial tendencies. It doesn't matter, you know, what color your skin is, what gender you are, you go for it. But, and it comes back to our company too, because like I said, we want to, you know, we want to hire the most talented people possible. We don't look like we want to hire the most talented white men possible. Like, that's not our mindset, you know, but it's this unfortunate ratio thing where we literally get a whole year of applicants and we have 1 woman that would apply. That's it. Like, you know, and that's just one aggressive example, but it's the truth, you know. And like, how do we, as, you know, maybe our moral foundation and everyone that's listening to this and everyone involved in the tech and entrepreneurship, how do we overcome this and like try to open up? Does it start with the top, change the way people's thinking so that the bottom, you know, the early young people can start like embracing it? Or do we start from the bottom and hopefully like the top starts weeding out, right? As Steve Jobs once said, progress is when the old people die, right? He kind of paraphrasing, but he said it was the truth to an extent, right? Like, just as the people that are the top dogs kind of vaporize and we are the type of people to replace them. And then is that the only true solution? Like, time progresses all. So I'm just curious your stance, but it's frustrating, you know, and hopefully you can hear this. It's just like, it's something that I've noticed for a long time. You know, I'm very, very lucky. I think in South Jersey, grew up in an area where, you know, in high school, as an example, all the time you heard like our parents in high school, like, cliques, stuff like that. Like, I got along with everyone. There was no cliques. There's no jocks cliques, no goss, stuff like that. It's like everyone just got along, right? And I grew up in that environment. So to me, people are people, right? It doesn't matter. And everyone, you know, everyone's just treated fairly. And obviously there's different people that talented in different stuff. And of course, but that, you know, you shouldn't be judged based off of who you are. It's the only thing is it's what you actually provide value-wise to society, right? And that's kind of always been my belief, my fundamentals.
Yeah. No, it's not an easy problem, and there's no like one solution, right? I hope people understand and how difficult it is to really try to create a inclusive environment, right? And then, for example, we did a conference. We had 137 speakers. It was hard as hell, right? It was hard as hell. And I have a Black network. I have a Latino network. I have a women's network. It still was hard, right? And then people don't always people don't always give you credit, or they're always not compassionate when you're like, hey, we have an application. We have 100 applicants, and we got one white male. No, we got one woman and one African American, and what you want us to do, hire those two, right? Because that's not how it works in business, right? And that's not really fair, right? And I've seen so many people just go into attack mode when, like, oh, you didn't have no diverse people in your team. There's no diverse people speaking at your conference. I've been guilty of that myself over the years. But now I've matured more. It's like, no, it's hard. It's hard. But it's still in some ways, there's like, depending on what you're doing, it's almost like, oh, there's no excuses. Now I've been saying that as well. Because as a business, you do have to go extra hard to get, more diverse people on your team. Especially depending on where you're geographically located. Because people don't take that in consideration when we're talking about Silicon Valley and the Bay Area. The population for San Francisco is only 6% Black out of millions. And half of that population in San Francisco is in jail. So,
wow.
All right, just from a population standpoint, is not that Black, it's not that diverse in terms of African Americans. Now, in terms of Indians and Latinos, super diverse, right? And everybody wants to point to Oakland. Yes, it has a higher number of African Americans, but it's not that much. It's growing now in terms of tech focus, but it's not there yet. So we have to be in mind of these other outside variables that can play a role in terms of making your workplace, making your conference, making the ecosystem more diverse and inclusive. Outside of just, hey, we want more Black people, more women in tech. It's much deeper than that, and everybody is not really thinking, how these other variables, cost of living, location, culture, choices. And then the other side of that, from a culture perspective, we do need more role models. We've been saying that for years. I mean, when I grew up, the role models was like basketball players, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, right? That was the role models. It still is. And we don't talk enough about how the culture in itself, especially the African-American culture itself, needs its own set of disruption in terms of focusing on computer science, focus on technology, focus on innovation, culture, opportunities to create wealth, and not the stereotypical norms that have been, in my opinion, plagued our communities. Have created a lot of wealth for some individuals, but plagued our community in terms of sports, entertainment, being, everything from comedians to athletes, drug dealers, you name it. We have to disrupt that culture, because the poverty gap, the income gap is continuing to just grow like that in the American economy. The Pew Internet Search came out with a report last year that the net worth in terms of value for whites is $141,000. For Latinos, it's $13,000. For African Americans, it's $10,000. The net worth. That means you don't have $10K worth of value. How are you going to get a loan? How are you going to get a house? That's your value. So all these problems exist in America, yet we have tech, we have innovation, we have this the president called it the new innovation economy. We have all these unfulfilled tech jobs. There's no other industry where you can go to code school or you can come out a year, 6 months and go get a job in tech.
So do you
We
think
have to
tech is
disrupt those
the
cultures.
do you think tech is the industry to do that, to disrupt those cultures, to put the first foot forward and make those changes?
Yes, yes, and but it's not just tech in terms of, oh, let's be an entrepreneur and go get a job, or and start a tech company next Mark Zuckerberg. But like I said, we only 12 of those, 15 of those happen a year. Um, it's about learning the technical skills to be to have a job in the tech workforce. That's what we want to push to, and we do need to push towards entrepreneurship at the same time.
I don't think it's impossible, because I think entrepreneurship is glamified as much as well. It's definitely more so now than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think people are looking at those entrepreneurs and seeing them, and they were, idolizing them and wanting to be them. So I think it's possible. Not as much though as like an athlete or a musician or something, but definitely it is definitely something people strive for more now, or kids today will strive for more. And I think tech is everywhere, like you said. So it's a good chance that tech is the industry to start pushing us in that direction and disrupting like that.
Yeah, agreed.
So Wayne, coming off of all of this, one of my big questions for you in particular is, what's all said and done, when your career is long over, what do you want your legacy to be like? When people look back at you individually, what do you want to be remembered as for everything you've done?
I feel like I'm having a retirement party. but that's important because everyone makes sacrifice. I moved to San Francisco in 2012. I have a 5-year-old little boy back in. He was in North Carolina, and now he's in Hampton, Virginia, and with his mom. And we FaceTime, and I think about that, the sacrifice I made to move across country to be away from him, and this is going to be worth it. So I want my legacy to be that I cared, hopefully inspired people, and hopefully change lives, that were the point where people realize that they didn't have to follow the typical path that is perceived for a lot of African Americans and minorities, that they can, interact and be on the same levels with anyone else in the world using technology. My life mission is to inspire entrepreneurs to use technology to change the world. So that's what want my legacy to be, that I did that.
So follow question to that, with your current days today and everything you're doing, for those listening that are entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, inspiring entrepreneurs, can you give us like a walkthrough of what an average day is like in your life? Like what time you're waking up, your eating habits, the type of meetings you're doing, how you organize your day, and perhaps some things that maybe we're able to dissect so people listening to this can adopt into their own schedules and routines?
Yeah. Average day, wake up around 7 a.m., breakfast, 7 a.m., meditation for 10 minutes, then do about 50 push-ups, a little bit of stretching. I use Headspace to meditate, and Insight Timer. Breakfast after that, to the office or meeting, emails all day, most times. I still have to do better on emails, but still emails. A lot of meetings that are relationship building, partnership opportunities. I cook, so I try to bring my lunch. I do bring my lunch 90% of the time. Eat healthy, try to do my best not to eat out. Most of the time, baked chicken or grass-fed beef, sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts or broccoli. Same thing about lunch and dinner, almost the same meals. Usually get home around 6:37. Depending on the mood and the energy, I go to the gym for an hour, then come back, some more emails, work. That's usually it. And then I don't watch TV. Friday nights and the weekend evenings, I do watch a movie often with Melinda, and try to get 10,000 steps in a day. Have an Apple Watch and a Jawbone. average about 6.5 hours, 7 hours of sleep. And weekends, we usually try to do something fun to go out. But for the average, we go to coffee shops and work. Our fun is movies, travel, but being productive and making an impact.
Cool.
So organizing off of that too, how do you like plan your days, weeks, months? Do you like have a game plan for a year and dissect that, reverse engineer it? Do you plan by week? Like, how do you go about organizing what is most important to you to accomplish in a given time period?
Yeah, so we have our plan, like our for this year, our big events with Tech Inclusion for the year plan. So we have the date sets for everything. We don't have the date sets for San Francisco and New York yet, the conferences that we're doing, but we know the time frame we want to do them. So everything is pretty much generated, around those days in terms of leads, in terms of how much capital we need to have raised by XYZ number of time, when we need speakers, how we do a marketing promotion, and other content driven products that we're doing as well. So
Gotcha. Man, this has been fun. Eddie, is there any questions on top of your head that we haven't asked Wayne yet?
I'm just kind of curious. You said your girlfriend, she's also in the tech scene?
Yes.
So what is that like, working together and being in the same industry? And is it distracting? Is it efficient? Like, what is that for you?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, for us, it's awesome. It's awesome because you think about typical, like, I've been there and I'm divorced, but I've been there where it's like you wake up, you go apart, you come back in the evening, you see on the weekend, right? And for us, we think a lot alike. We're passionate about, our values, or we're passionate about the same things. Our values are similar about happiness, healthiness, creating wealth and impact. So it works for us, it just works for us. We communicate extensively. We share, there's no hidden, like we share our calendars. We have a Slack group, you know what I mean? Like
That's awesome.
It just works for us. And we understand when we need a break. We understand when we need more communication, but we read each other well, and so it's good.
So Josh Lopez wants to know if she gets mad at you when you're on the computer all the time. Is that something that you guys struggle with, or is it something that she understands because she does it herself?
Yeah, no, she's on the computer all the time too.
Yeah. You guys probably just push each other.
Yeah. So there's times where it's like, okay, for example, this week, it's been a crazy week already. We had a full day of meetings. We both were tired. We didn't get home to about 8 o'clock. Actually about 9 o'clock. And we was like, look, we both need to get two things done, right? I need you to work, and if I didn't want to be like I need you, but if you could work on this announcement, and I work on this newsletter, let's get this one thing done. We can call it a night, and we're gonna set an alarm for 10 o'clock and go to bed. And we just had to focus, but we did it, and it paid off. And so no, we're both the same way on that. But there's times where we said we're gonna do something, then we check up on each other later, and like neither one of us have done it. Then it's like, okay, what are we doing? So it's being flexible, being understanding at the same time.
But it's also nice because of the accountability. So if you share something that you're gonna do with her, she's gonna hold you accountable when you tell her like you haven't done that yet, which is great. I think that's good for productivity and keeping yourself on task. And do you guys find it hard to make time for yourselves? Like, just do you find it hard to stick to schedules and to find some just like downtime?
No. We just communicate about, and we're tuning up for each other to where we're both like, I need a break, or like we need a break, or let's just unplug and go hiking, or go on a trip or something. We're just really intuitive, and we communicate when we both feel that way. That's something we just started from day zero. It's just like, it's been 2 years now, and that we have an open channel, and because we both been in relationships in the past where that was some of the problems, where people are just not willing to share how they really feel. And that over time just builds up this wall of like of ingenuous to where like I don't know how to share or how I really feel, but you have to really share how you feel.
Right. That's awesome. You guys are, it's cool that you have that dynamic in that relationship, especially that you guys can push each other like that.
So
I guess,
Ryan Holiday is actually a very, very awesome author. He's wrote Trust Me, I'm Lying, those type of books. And he wrote a blog post recently that I read called basically, I don't know the exact title, but it's basically having a spouse is the greatest life hack to productivity. It's like having a great spouse, about how basically having his now wife, his girlfriend at the time, made him just that much more productive, that much more efficient, that much more motivated. Do you agree with that? Is there a verse that, like, what is your thoughts, like, working, especially since you're working directly with your girlfriend? Like, have you noticed that to be an asset for you, or is there any disadvantages that you think people need to be aware of when they go that route?
No, it's a great asset. It's a great asset. I can say it's not for everybody. Like, you have to you have to let your ego aside. There's no play for egos. There's no room for egos. There's no room for jealousies. There's no room for trying to take credit for everything. There's no room for none of that, right? Which stereotypically, from a society standpoint, a lot of men have, right? You know what I mean? You want to be the person that just like, it's me, but no, there's no room for none of that. And having Melinda at my side, and not my side, but no, let me not even say that. Having for Melinda and I to work side by side is one of the biggest assets, I think, that I believe in, that we both have, that has really helped both of us out in our career and our lives in terms of just being happy.
It's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So there's another question in the chat. This guy wants to know, did you have any mentors growing up in tech? Specifically in tech, did anyone inspire you growing up?
Yeah. Growing up in tech, no. I mean, I've shown my age a little bit earlier. From the late '90s to the 2000s. It wasn't until my 20s I started having some mentors that were in tech. Right? It was the Anton Zeiker, who's a professor at Duke University. I think he's still at Duke. And he was a big person that was pushing blogging when it first came out, and the power of storytelling. So like, he played a big role in my life in my mid-20s. And then when Black Planet, and for those of you who remember that social network launched, that was pre-Facebook, pre-Friend Feed, pre-Friendster. It launched. One of the founders, he sold it. We were one of the first Black entrepreneurs to create a social network and startup and sell it. And so I ended up meeting him in my 30s, Omar Warsaw. Now he's a professor at Princeton, and he's a mentor colleague now. And then Hank Williams, who unfortunately just passed away in November, was a great friend and mentor. He was he was an African American entrepreneur who raised $40 million for a startup in doing a first bubble, do a Pandora-like platform. And he was the first African American guy I saw blogging and writing about tech on Business Insider and so forth. And so like, those like people who inspired me, but it was all later in life that they inspired me, not growing up. So this is one of the reasons why we do what we do, and why we need to create more role models, because I didn't have that growing up.
Absolutely.
And now we can show that to the younger generation.
That needs to be you. You need to be that guy for those kids now.
Yeah,
we all need to be. Yeah,
we all need to be, and we still have time. We have a lot of work to do, and we're going to make it happen.
So one last question on my end, and I'll see if Eddie has any left. A lot of entrepreneurs, they talk about successes and accomplishments, stuff like that. I really want to hear, because every entrepreneur fails. Has there been a situation where you've had a real failure before, and how you've overcome that, and how you overcame that you now apply today when you're working, when you're doing your thing, when you're focused? Because I think it's a huge asset for people to have, is that awareness.